Mr. Ellzey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Garland, welcome back.
Thank you.
I appreciate the work the DOJ does going after legitimate criminals and protecting American citizens from foreign adversaries, and especially the COPS program, which is very important in my rural district, as we discussed a year ago. But today I'd like to talk about the Foreign Agents Registration Act, or FARA. I bring up FARA in context of shenanigans, that's a clinical term, going on in Texas. There's a proposed high-speed rail project connecting Dallas to Houston. About a decade ago, a private company called Texas Central started pushing a proposed high-speed rail project between Houston and Dallas, and they've been engaged at the federal, state, and local level in lobbying in that effort. I am vehemently opposed to this proposed project that would cut up highly arable land in my district and rid people of their well-earned land and their private property. So there's a long list of controversies surrounding Texas Central, from funding and financing, eminent domain, lack of transparency, dismissing every officer and board member, and now they appear to be merely a company on paper with no board of directors. And as an aside, Texas Central has zero experience operating or building any type of transportation company. There are a few entities connected to or under Texas Central, and there's a consulting company called New Magellan Ventures that's pushing the project. Since the beginning of the project, sovereign wealth funds of the Japanese government are financially backing that high-speed rail proposal. A very concerning recent action was Amtrak's partnering with Texas Central in applying for an FY22 Corridor Identification and Development Grant, and a $500,000 grant was approved. On April 9th, there was a news article published about Texas Central and a letter dated April 5th, addressed to you, signed by Steve Roberts from Holtman Vogel Law Firm. It states that Mr. Roberts was hired by Texans Against High-Speed Rail and wrote it on behalf of Texans Against High-Speed Rail. And Mr. Chairman, I have that letter, and I ask for unanimous consent that this article and letter be introduced into the record. I'll read part of the letter to you that I think captures the concerns that I have. Texas Central appears to have acted and may still act as an agent of the Japanese government with regard to numerous political activities intended to influence both lawmakers and the public within the United States with reference to formulating, adopting, or changing the domestic policies of the United States. Yet neither New Magellan Ventures nor any of the Texas Central entities or their representatives have ever registered with the Department of Justice under the Foreign Agents Registration Act of 1938. So with that laid out for you, I have two questions. Do you agree that it would be concerning if a private company or principals of a private company over the course of a decade failed to register as foreign agents under FARA if the facts are clear that they were legally required to?
Well, if you put me in that exact box, the answer has to be yes. Okay. I obviously don't know anything about this matter at all. But obviously, if someone is required to register under FARA, then we would be concerned if they don't.
As I said, I'm not surprised that you haven't heard of this, but it's important in our district, and so I'm going to the big man on campus to ask those questions. The final question is, I'll wrap it up. If a private company whose principals failed to register as a foreign agents when the facts are clear that they were required to do so, enters into a partnership with the federal government, would that concern you as the chief law enforcement officer of the United States? And would that cause you to question whether the federal government is properly using taxpayer dollars?
This is less of a clean hypothetical than the previous one. I'd have to know a lot more about the facts before I could make a determination.
But if those were the facts, hypothetically?
Well, that description is even with those facts is still a little more vague than makes clear. FARA is a complicated statute. We would always be concerned about an effort by a foreign government to try to influence the government of the United States. If I can put it at that level of generality, that's clearly true.
And I understand that, and you obviously have to be somewhat obtuse about that. But so to summarize,
I'd rather call it circumspect.
Okay. In Texas, there is a so-called private company that has no board of directors that has now gotten eminent domain from the state of Texas to take private citizens' land and gotten a grant from Amtrak to take people's land and build a project that currently doesn't exist, and they haven't on behalf of a foreign government, and they haven't registered as federal agents. So thank you for your time. I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Ming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ranking Member Cartwright.